My name is Jessica Meichtry. I'm the category manager for swimming here at BSN Sports. I was previously a 2012 Olympic gold medalist swimmer. But since the onset of the pandemic, BSN Sports has hosted over 250 free clinics and webinars geared towards helping coaches, and more than 300,000 have registered for a live event. We're super appreciative of all of our coaches, and we'll continue to host more free content to help. Today, we have a really special treat, as you know. Thanks to our mutual partnership with Speedo, we have the awesome opportunity to chat with Olympic and world champion Ryan Murphy. Ryan's going to talk about technique, offer training tips, share what he feels sets him apart from his competition, and helping him maintain his long-term success. We look forward to this live Q&A. We will be accepting questions from all of you attendees as well, so feel free to type in any questions at any time using the live chat feature. At BSN Sports, we believe that coaches and administrators like you all in this webinar will impact more lives in a calendar year than normal people will in their entire life. Our goal as a company is to save you time and give you more tools off the deck so you can change more lives on it. And now more than ever, we realize how valuable coaches and administrators are to our student athletes. So with that, I would love to introduce you to Ryan. Ryan, thanks so much for being here and welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And it's fun to catch up with you a little bit.
Ditto, fellow Berkeley, Berkeley Bear. I've been following your career and really cool to see all the successes you've had since I've been retired in the old ladies club. You're really fun to watch.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know it's crazy how quick it goes by. I mean, like I could vividly remember growing up and watching you and all the success you have or have had in the sport. And now it's cool to kind of be on a similar path myself.
I think we were on our first trip together was in Dubai, I think back in the day. Was that right? Does that sound right?
So my first worlds. So I went to Istanbul. Mm-hmm. That was my first short course.
That's where worlds. It was. Istanbul. That was
God,
fun.
And those, you remember those bus rides?
Yeah, we had a police escort through the streets of Istanbul. It was really, really fun.
Oh man, yeah, I know. I'm lucky that I was young. I was just so excited to be there. So the logistics didn't frustrate me too much there.
Yeah, it's good times. I'm sure you've had lots of awesome experiences since then too. I guess to get started on our formal Q&A, want to talk from the very beginning. I know you're close with your mom specifically. You have a really close-knit family, but what within your family helped you get into the sport of swimming?
Yeah, so when I was 6 months old, I was born in Chicago, and when I was 6 months old, we moved down to Florida. So as a way for my parents to meet people, for the kids to meet people, we were just up at the community pool every single day. So from the youngest age, like before I could actually swim, I was playing around in the kiddie pool. My older brother and sister had joined the summer league team. And I was just kind of following in their footsteps. We kind of did everything together. Every single sport, I was playing up on Patrick's teams. I would look up to Shannon. She obviously couldn't play on the same teams as us, but as swimming she could. So that was something that was really fun for all of us. So yeah, it ended up just being a really cool family activity where we could blow off some steam. My parents loved the social aspect of it, and so it was fun for everyone.
Pretty cool. Your club atmosphere in Chicago. I know you swam at Bowls in high school too. Can you talk about the transition there and specifically the amazing club experience you had?
Yeah, so Bowls was a big step to decide to go and swim there. So I grew up and I was bouncing around some other teams in Jacksonville. I say bouncing around. I swam on 2 teams in Jacksonville, and then I ultimately decided to go swim with Bowls. So I was used to really small club teams, like 15, 20 people, and Bowls is definitely not that. That's a much larger team, and the level of competition was a huge step up. So that was the first time where I got into a practice and it's like, well, no way am I going to be able to compete with some of these people that are juniors and seniors in high school. And I went there as an 8th grader. And as I progressed through that process, as I got older in high school, it just felt like every year we were getting an influx of new talent. So the year after I went to Bulls, Joseph Schooling showed up. The year after that, Santo Condarelli showed up, and Caleb joined the club team first. So he came in sometime a couple months after Santo. That group has now gone on to win like 15 Olympic medals. So like we just had this incredible core group at Bulls. None of us had any idea how good we were, but like success is relative. Like we were just pushing each other every day. None of us wanted to lose, and it turned out to be a really good benefit for us long term.
I love it. And you don't know any different, right? You're just surrounded by it and having fun doing your thing. Pretty cool. I'd love to
Exactly.
talk about how you developed kind of, what lessons you learned in that environment that helped you develop dedication and sacrifice from a younger age than a lot of elite athletes.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is you learn how to frame a loss. So like when you're in an environment like that, you lose pretty frequently. Like I was swimming next to some really talented swimmers, and so how do you deal with that? For me, like it ended up taking that loss as motivation and learning how to analyze a situation. So, okay, that swim didn't necessarily go the way I wanted it to go. Why is that? Was it something in the moment? Was I too nervous? Did I abandon my race strategy? Or was it something throughout the season? Were there things that I didn't feel prepared to do in the race that I felt like I should have done during training? And so just kind of like learning how to assess disappointment and making changes based upon that is something that I thought was really valuable at Bulls.
Pretty interesting. I love it. How now that you're at Cal, I know you transitioned a few years ago at this point, but how difficult was it to manage your time, competing as a world-class athlete, but also at a world-class level of academics, both at Bulls and at Berkeley?
Yeah. So I grew up in a family, especially my mom's side is really involved in education. So my grandpa writes math textbooks for a living. My mom was a college math professor. So academics was always priority number one. If the grades weren't at a level that that we were satisfied with, like swimming was not happening. So that was something I took into college as well. Like I knew I had huge goals in swimming, and that was really easy for me to work hard and get after. I also knew that like swimming is not forever, and like I need to take advantage of the opportunity of being at Cal, making the most of it, trying to get into a good major, prepare myself for a career after swimming, and hopefully at that a successful career after swimming. So that was kind of like the thought process in my head. And the managing time piece was really just trying to be super organized. Like at the beginning of every semester, we'd get our syllabus for each class, and you could kind of highlight across those 4 or 5 classes you're taking. Okay, I might have 3 exams on this one week. I can't cram and study for all 3 of those in that week. Like I need to plan ahead, start that studying process a week or 2 out, so that when I get to that week, it doesn't completely take away from what I'm trying to do in the pool. And so like really the goals I had in swimming actually really helps me to be more organized in school. And I think it helps me out a lot.
Pretty impressive. Yeah, I love all of it. It's cool to hear, and would love to kind of just transition now into swimming specific stuff. Backstroke, you're killing it. What strokes, what drills do help you on off days when you're not feeling in the mood or not feeling the groove, but you still have to perform? What drills do you go to?
Yeah, so it honestly kind of depends on the practice. So if I like right now I'm pretty buried. Like I did not have a great week of training last week. I had a great like 8 weeks before that. But last week it started to add up. So when that happens, I honestly go and I train a different stroke. So like I'll train a lot of IM, butterfly, freestyle. anything but breaststroke is what I turn to, because the breaststroke is never going to be feeling good. So if we're supposed to be going fast, I'll try to just do IM free or fly. If it's more of a recovery day and I'm trying to get that flow back into backstroke, I really like the body connection drills. So I do a lot of single arm. And when I'm doing the single arm, I'm not just focusing on this arm that I'm pulling with. Like, I'm focusing on how am I using my body to help rotate that arm through, what's the size of my kick, and really just break it down into small components, and then hopefully something clicks there. And on those days too, I'm really not looking at the times on the board at all. It's more about, like, call it chasing a feeling more than anything else, to try to get that stroke dialed in.
Pretty cool. I love it. Very insightful. We have a question from the audience. Hannah asked, where does resistance training factor in, and how does it change across the season?
Yeah, so we try to, resistance training, I love resistance training. So, like, both in and out of the pool, I would say. So I'll start with out of the pool. At the beginning of the year, that's going to be more like capacity work, like really dense dry lands, weight room sessions, just building that kind of like foundational level of strength. As I get throughout the season, like, I'm someone where, like, I can put on muscle easily and I can hold muscle pretty easily. So, like, I don't really have to lift that hard like a month out of the meet. So as it gets closer to the end of the season, it's going to be more about, like, making the most of what I have. So focusing more on the explosive lifts, and maximizing that part of the weight room. In the water, I like resistance as a way to set up the stroke. So when you have resistance on, you can really just feel like where you're losing momentum in your stroke, and then you could do things to try to change that, to make it better. So it really just helps me. It really gives me a gauge of where my stroke's at, and then gradually build up the speed, build up the power, and then you take off the resistance and try to go fast off of it.
I think when I trained with Durden in high school back in the day, who's your coach now, he used to believe that transitioning weight room into the water, we had like speed power days after weight room sessions. Is that still a thing for you guys, where you do heavy resistance after like a big weight room session in the water?
Yeah, especially as we get later in the season. So, like, beginning of the season, we don't necessarily always do resistance off of weights, but later in the season, like, as we're bringing in recovery days, like, we don't want to be going recovery and resistance on the same day. But it does work where, when the volume in the weight room starts to come down and it's more focused on the explosiveness, to have that match up with the resistance in the water. So it's speed in the weight room, speed in the water, and that just ends up being a really nice afternoon practice.
Definitely agree with you on the nice part. It's so fun. We have another question from Eric, who said, you said at your first trials that you needed to gain 50 pounds in muscle to be competitive. What did you do to gain the strength? 50 pounds.
Oh, I didn't need to gain 50. I think I was, I could honestly remember I was 185 at 2012 Olympic trials. So, I was a bigger kid. And it's not like that was like a lean 185. I was having a milkshake every night. So it was a little pudgy 185. Then when I got to college, so, like, as an example, in 2016, I competed at 200 pounds. In 2018, I competed at 195. In 2021, I competed at 197. So, like, the weight has stayed pretty, like, that number specifically has stayed pretty steady, especially since I got to college. But you're really looking at, like, where you're holding that weight. Like, for me, like, it doesn't make a ton of sense for me to have just, like, massive biceps. Like, I'm not going to be using biceps and backstroke, and same thing goes with chest, but I am using my legs a lot. So, like, having a little bit more of that power in my legs makes a lot of sense. And that's going to look a little bit different for each stroke.
Pretty cool. Yeah, you say I like how you casually mentioned, like, I don't need to lift that heavy, to be competitive. And it's like, I think your relativity of lifting heavy is different from the high school athletes that some of these coaches might coach, or, people who are just, in a younger, greener version of the sport. So just a little side note to the coaches on this call, when he says it's not that heavy, it's still pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Personally. Yeah, and then would love to talk about your favorite workout. If you're going to write a set, what's your go-to like dream workout?
Yeah. So I really like repeat efforts. So I'll give I guess 2 examples of that. So one set we do pretty frequently is 24 100s on 130 every third best average. So that's a good one because you control like how hard you're going to attack that set, and you're going to hit a point at like number 4 or 5 where it's like, oh, like it might have pushed that a little too hard too early, and then you could really focus on some technique things to try to get a little bit more out of it. So like I like that where you're kind of forced to think about the technique in order to go faster. And then, probably my like actual favorite sets, because the 24 100s hurts really bad, is when we do like huge rest. So like as an example, on 2.5 weeks ago, we suited up and everyone had 4 efforts. So I had 150 IM, so fly back breast. The next one was a broken 200 IM as 100 and then 250s. The next one was a straight up 100 IM and then a straight up 100 fly. And that was on 15 minutes each. So you're having really high output, really tough efforts, and you're spiking your lactic acid, and then you're trying to learn how to carry that and still go fast in the next effort.
Pretty cool. I love that. We have some more questions from John Smith. Your best advice for swimming straight in an outdoor pool when the sun's in your eyes?
Yeah, so it is a challenge to swim straight outside. Honestly, what I do is like I'll pick a side. Like I'll pick a side, and like your goggles now, especially like Speedo's goggles, you get some pretty good like side vision. So I'll pick a side, and then you kind of just like veer towards there, and then you could see the lane line the entire race. I would say also, like in tandem with that, if you're not swimming straight, like there is some sort of imbalance in your stroke. And so like that's a nice cue for yourself, if you're not swimming straight, to maybe look at some video and think about, why is it that I'm veering a certain direction? If you push off not exactly straight, like that's a different thing. So that makes sense why someone hits the landline if they're not pushing off straight. But if you're veering while you're swimming, there is a slight imbalance there, and you should probably look at what that is. Is it crossing over with the arms? Are you rotating more to one side or the other? Is your kick imbalanced? There's a lot of different reasons you might not swim straight.
Really good insight. Thanks for that. I'm not a backstroker and didn't know that answer. I learned something today. Next question is from Sophia. She's been swimming since she was 3, grew up watching both of us swim, and wants to know what your life looks like outside the sport.
Yeah, so well, right now the life is, so I got engaged last year. So we're planning a wedding. And Bridget's mostly planning a wedding.
Congratulations.
And then
That's so cool.
Thank you. So I'm in a support role there, helping her where she needs it. And so that's something that's going on. I like, if I'm hanging out with some of my friends, like we like to go out, play around at golf, and then just hang out at country club or wherever we're golfing. So it's just really just trying to get quality time with people. Like that's what I like outside of the sport. Um, and then something to keep the brain fresh. So like I've always had a big fear. When I turned professional, I was like, I do not want to turn dumb. That was a big fear, and so I'm always trying to do something to like keep the skill set active, so that when I do at some point transition out of swimming, like hopefully I'm not too far behind.
I love it. So cool. Next question is from Maddie. What is a drill or something you do either in or out of the pool that helps you with your backstroke start? Or certain cues that you think about when you're doing a start?
Yeah, so I really try to keep the start as simple as possible. So like I really think of it as like if you're practicing it on land, think about it as a vertical jump. So if someone was going to say, "Hey, jump as high as you can," and with that, jump as high as you can while putting your arms to a streamline, you know how you're going to set up. Like you know how far apart your feet are going to be. You kind of know what angle your legs are going to be at, and you could kind of play around with it that way. Figure out what angle you're comfortable with your legs, how far apart you put your feet, and then the backstroke start is basically the same thing. So like when you get into the water, you try to replicate that. So I would say one thing that I always tell people not to do is like when I see people do a backstroke start and they've got their butt on their heels, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like if I was going to ask you to vertical jump, you're not putting your butt on your heels. You're probably putting your legs at about 90 degrees. And then all you have to do is pull yourself up. Don't change that leg angle, and then you just launch. So that's how I think of it. Specific exercises to help it would be in the weight room. And I don't necessarily know the age of the coaches or like what age group they're coaching. Like for college level athletes, like we're doing Olympic lifts. So something like a hang clean or power clean is really good to replicate that movement. A snatch is really good to replicate that movement. And then you kind of just carry it into the water.
Super insightful. I think, yeah, to translate that for a younger coach, potentially of younger athletes, you can do a lot of, vertical jumps and, bungee cord resistant type style jumps on the deck, to kind of build some more lean muscle if you don't want to get your athletes in the weight room quite yet. But super insightful. I appreciate that. And I wish I knew that back when I swam. Maybe my backstroke wouldn't have been as bad. Thanks, Ryan.
I think it worked out for you just fine.
Not my backstroke. Nope. Next question from John is what you're thinking about with your hip movement during your catch. Sorry, it's covered. Hip movement during catch, during your pull and finish.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really like, it's really just one movement. So I don't segment it like that. So what I would say is think about it in like a non-swimming related analogy. So like if you watch a quarterback throw a ball or someone swing a bat, like it starts with their hips and then that throws the whole body. And so the backstroke catches the same thing. So like if you enter and you're rotated on your side, the first thing you want to throw is the hips, and then that's gonna basically be like the chain reaction of the whole body flowing through. So it's harder to do as compared to a baseball swing or a throw because they're able to plant their feet with gravity. So that's the challenge that swimmers have is we've got to throw that rotation a little bit more using our abs rather than gravity. So throwing it with the abs / the hips, and then the arm kind of follows that.
Love it. Super helpful. And then you don't segment out the different cycles of the pull. It's more of just an unconscious, follow through for you, just to clarify.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think a tendency I have is like at the end of the stroke, because it is hard to use like your abs to fully get around. So like my tendency when I get tired is to push down to like get that last little bit of rotation. that's not necessarily a good thing, and that's something that I actively work on. But the goal would be to when your arm is coming out of the water, like you don't want to still be rotating, because that's when you start like really dragging water to get this shoulder out of the water. So if you can be rotated on your side at the bottom, and then you could have a really clean recovery, and then you throw the hips at the beginning of the catch, and then really just trying to get everything over, like getting the hips over in time for the next stroke. Like that's kind of the goal.
So you're leading your entire stroke with your hips in a way. Am I understanding that correctly? Cool.
Yes.
Cool.
And you've got a little bit more time in like a longer event, the 200 back, like you have more time for that rotation. So in the 100 back, it's going to be, everything's going to be a little bit tighter, a little bit closer, and the rotation is going to be a tiny bit less. So really, like, and this is just one style. There's also multiple styles of backstroke, and like some of the top people in the world do it in different ways. But for me, like I'm a very rotational heavy backstroker, and so like I do rely on the rotation in the 200 back to get me that distance per stroke, and then the 100 back, in order to get the tempo up a little bit more, the rotation is less.
Thanks for that. Next question, we've got takeaways on championship culture. You got great experience at Cal. Team USA is notorious for being, walking in with a presence and, being one of the best team sports in all of history of sports. So would love to hear your insights from all of your experiences.
Yeah, great question. And I love this. And I think frankly, I think the biggest commonality between great teams is great culture. So I'll talk about Bulls first. I think Bulls had a really great culture, especially for that age group. So Sergio Lopez was the coach at Bulls when I was in high school, and the thing that he was always preaching to the entire group was, you just have to believe. At a high school age, I think the biggest thing is you want your swimmers swimming confident, and that's great for swimming. It's great for outside of swimming. That's a time in your life where there is a lot going on. I don't think a ton of people are like freshmen in high school feeling really confident, and so like building that belief is a huge thing. And that allows you to be a better teammate, lift each other up, and create a positive culture. And then that leads to fast swimming. Going from there to Cal, the coaching philosophy is a little bit different. Like Durden is very much a coach that says, okay, if we do all of these things, we're going to increase our probability for optimizing our talent. So like much more like scientific, like, and you kind of just have like a no stone unturned mentality, like looking at every little thing. Are we maximizing that? And so when you have that culture of everyone being really continuous learners, that's really good, because you learn together. So then you're helping out your teammates, and everything is geared towards improving. And I think that's a really cool culture at Cal. And then Team USA is so interesting because it's an all-star team. Like, we're not training together throughout the entire year, but you're bringing together people from, like over 30 different training groups, training philosophies, and you kind of see how it meshes. And so there, I think the messaging is, we're great. Like if you were able to get through the gauntlet of making the team and getting on this Olympic team or world championship team, well, you're really good. And you've got to believe that, because it is a little bit hard when you get into that environment and you're seeing like a Katie Ledecky, who's just like every year dominating. And you're like, oh, well, I don't think I could do that. And it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you earned your spot on this team. You are really good. And like, you're no different than other people that have made these teams before, and look at the success that they've had. So I think you just have this culture of excellence there that people can really buy into.
Super helpful and insightful. I love it. I got goosebumps, ready to run through a wall now. I
Let's
love it.
go.
I love it. Another question from Suzanne is, how would you describe your head position when swimming backstroke?
Yeah, so this kind of gets into I think there's pretty much like two distinct styles in backstroke. So one of them is going to be a little bit more core driven. I think a way to do that is to kind of not lift your not like not tuck your chin, but you're almost like pushing your head a little bit forward. That gets your abs engaged pretty automatically. I'm a very core driven backstroker. The other piece that does is if your goal is to get your shoulders up and over the water, then you're catching resistance on your hips. So really the question is, do you want to catch resistance on your hips or your shoulders? Kind of just depends on your body type. I have big shoulders, so I don't want to catch resistance on my shoulders. For people that are okay with that, maybe they're a little bit like more like slender, they can push their head back a little bit further. Their shoulders are going to plow a little bit, but they're catching the resistance on their shoulders and their hips are going to be a little bit higher in the water. So it just kind of ends up being the dynamics of how you want to swim and look at the body type of the athlete you're working with.
I love it. Enrique asks, can you describe the difference between a hollow or rounded back versus arched back? I trained with Natalie Coughlin at Cal, and she told me to pretend I was laying in a hammock. I don't know if that plays
Mhm.
into your answer. That's a breaststroker's take on what I've learned.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of think about it in a similar way. I mean, if you look at like how a boat is shaped, it's I mean, it's the bottom of it's rounded, and so like that's I mean, you just kind of assume that like the people that were studying that and made those were studying the right things, and so you want to form your body in the same way. And then if you just kind of like if you think about it as a backstroker, the water is moving underneath you. So if your back is flat, that's great. If your back is arched, well, then you're be catching a bunch of water on your hips. So that's not necessarily a good thing. So we're always trying to think of trying to have a hollow body when we're swimming.
Super cool. Okay, here we go. We got another one for you. And then I have a few more to ask you just kind of for fun at the end. But last question from the audience from Hannah. Did you always enjoy learning about your sport, and what coaches or mentors did you have that helped you learn how to learn?
Yeah, I think I have always enjoyed learning about the sport. I think there's times where you definitely put a little bit more focus on the end result than the process, and that kind of makes it less fun for me at least. So like being involved in the process is something that's really kept it fresh. And I think each coach has kind of influenced what I want to learn about in different ways. So Sergio, like he was approaching belief. And so that made me want to learn about the mental side of swimming. How do I deal with pressure? What are my instincts when I feel pressure? And how can I mean, how like pretty much like how can I take that pressure and maximize what I'm going to do with it? At Cal, really with that no stone unturned mentality, like it kind of led me and honestly, like swimming with someone like Natalie, she had such a great lifestyle of success. Like she was looking at everything in order to be great, and you could learn a lot from that. And so like that led me to want to learn more about the nutrition side. What are recovery options? How can I maximize the sleep I'm getting? And so like a little bit more on the physiology side of performance is what I think being at Cal has led me to want to learn. And so yeah, it's just kind of different. Like the different environments do influence the way that you're going to learn.
Pretty cool. I guess the first fun question I have for you is, what do you wish you knew when you first started swimming?
What do I wish I knew when I first started swimming?
Little
That's
Ryan,
a good question. I think
back when you were playing in that community pool, what do you wish little Ryan knew?
yeah, well, I think that's a good question. I honestly haven't really given that a ton of thought. I think I've always really enjoyed the relay, so that I've always known that, and so I always wanted to be in great programs. That was like a core foundational belief in my swimming. I think probably what I struggled with the most when I was young, that I wish I knew, is that like the fear, like the fear that you bring before a race, the anticipation of a race is always way worse than like when you actually feel like you've failed. Uh, and so like I was always incredibly nervous before races, and it's kind of like it matters, but it doesn't matter. Like in terms of what I'm doing day to day, nothing changes based on a performance. I hang out with the same people, I do the same things, and like that's kind of it. The only thing that a bad performance has is it hits your confidence. Your confidence is honestly within your control. So like if you're feeling down about something, there's other ways that you can feel confident, and in other areas of your life that you can carry a lot of confidence that will in turn help your swimming. So I would say that really the pressure side of it is something I struggled with when I was young, and so the anticipation of a race and the anticipation of failure is always worse than actually feeling that failure.
So insightful. It's big key to success, I think, for elite level athletes. So coaches, definitely, I can reiterate that 1,000%. It's important to teach that to your athletes. Thanks for sharing that with us. The next fun question would be just your favorite Olympic memory or a funny story from any national team trip you've been on. These are always the fan favorite questions. We want to know like the inside, what it's like to eat in that dining hall with all the different languages and, the fun stuff that you don't see on TV.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, I think probably the most fun Olympic story, like honestly, probably my favorite Olympic memory would be kind of the lead up to the medley relay in 2021, and then like post the medley relay in 2021. So in the lead up to the medley relay, basically the night before, and then finals were in the morning. So like the night before is like you're starting to feel the nerves. So Durden was the head coach of the Olympic team, and so he sat down me, Michael, Caleb, and Zappel, and we sit down and he starts reading off splits, and like they were kind of random splits. It was like 52-1, and then like 58, 50.46, and those were the world record splits from the 2009 world record. And as he was reading that off, it's like 52-1. Well, that's what I went in the individual 100 back at that meet. 58, that's what Michael went in the 100 breast. I think it was 49 high in the 100 fly. Caleb had gone like 49.4 in the individual. And then Zappel had anchored the 400 free relay, I think, in 46.6. And so really the message there was like, look, guys, you're right on this. And if you just go in there and you simply do what you have done this week, we're going to break this world record, and we'll break it by about half a second. So take a lot of confidence of where you're at. I know like an 8-day meet, well, in that case, it was a 9-day meet because of the prelims finals being flipped, but you can take a lot of confidence. Like your body has not changed in the past week. Your confidence might not be in the same spot. You've been hit with some stuff like throughout the meet, like you're tired, I get it, but you're ready to go. Lean on each other, get excited for this race, and let's go out there and kick some ass. And so we went out there, we won out of lane one, we set the world record, and then we celebrated like crazy. It felt like we were celebrating for like a minute, and like you could hear the celebrations really well in there because there were no fans. So like at that point, like the USA, the people that were done swimming, like they were sitting in the closest section, actually to lane one, at that point. And so it was like really this back and forth between like the team section that was going nuts and then us on the pool deck. And then and then I don't share this one like to like the kids crowd, but when we were flying back from when we flew back from Tokyo, because we had to get out of there like immediately because of COVID restrictions. So it just happened that like 3/4 of the men's team was on the flight to New York, and like we all got booked first class. So the flight attendants figured out that like we were coming off of the Olympics, and so they just kind of started like everyone that was over 21, they just started bringing some drinks, and then it was just like 30 minutes later, like we were there were like 10 guys like shoved into the airplane like we basically the airplane bar at that point. It's typically where they're preparing food, and they were just like making us drinks in the airplane bar. And like for the Olympic year, you pretty much go dry all year. So like that was just a really like that was a pretty fun and like funny celebration. That was like the time where we got to like let loose after a year of being like basically, I mean, we couldn't do anything throughout the entire year, trying to stay healthy for the Olympics.
So cool. I got goosebumps again hearing that. I can't imagine. And totally unique. I don't think any other Olympian will ever have that experience with no fans being the last event. I mean, pretty cool. Thanks for sharing and congrats on that one. Last question for you. What makes it fun for you now? Now you're one of the veterans, you're one of the older guys on the team. You've accomplished a lot. You know, a lot of people, you know, have dreamt of what you've accomplished, and you still are doing best times, still dominating. How are you doing that? What are your goals that you're still trying to achieve, you know, and how can we cheer you on, support you?
Yeah, I mean, I think really what keeps it fun for me is the people. So like being able to train with, I mean, honestly, being able to train with a college team out here at Cal, like there's so much excitement like every day from that group that I'm really able to feed off of, and that keeps it really fun for me. And then in terms of the goals, like, I mean, I want to keep on trying to win. So I mean, the goals would be to, I mean, really the main goals are 2024. So trying to pull out some wins in 2024, medaling in 2024 would be awesome. And yeah, I'm doing everything I can to try to make that happen.
Thanks for sharing with us. We appreciate it. I don't think we have any more questions from the audience, but we had awesome participation and even better answers from you today. Loved the conversation, learning from you. We appreciate you spending the time with us, and we appreciate Speedo kind of making the connection and providing this webinar to be happening for us at BSN Sports. Really good to chat with you. It's been a long time, but I'm cheering for you, and I think I can speak for a lot of people on this webinar that we're all cheering for you, you know, in the next year and a half too. You know, excited to see you win. And if you have social media, do you want to share your handles so we can chat, you know, cheer you on through that as well?
Yeah. So for Twitter and Instagram, it's Ryan_F_Murphy. It's unbelievable how hard it is to get a username when your name is Ryan Murphy. It's like terrible. So it's either underscores or throw like 6 numbers in there.
Perfect. We're gonna connect with you, cheer for you, and at BSN_swimming if you want to get in touch with us, or personally, I'm at Swim Hardy as well. And thanks so much again to everyone involved. And thanks to BSN, thanks to Speedo, and thanks to Ryan. Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Hope to see you soon.
You too. Good luck in the meantime.
Yep. Thank you. You too.
Thank you.